Welcome back, everybody. Today, we're going deep
Hmm.
into the Ethiopian legal system.
Right?
We'll be looking at this paper, The Genesis of the Contemporary Ethiopian Legal System.
Yeah.
Should be interesting to see how it all came together.
Oh, it's fascinating.
Okay.
It really is.
So, before the 16th century,
Okay.
what did law look like in Ethiopia?
Well, you got to imagine all these different influences.
Mm.
You had all the customary laws, and those varied a lot between groups.
That's sense.
Alongside that, you had biblical commandments and religious norms, too.
So, real mix.
Yeah, all shaping justice.
Oh, that's a lot to keep track of.
Yeah, and then you've got the canon law of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church.
Right.
We even see that in texts going back to the 13th and 14th centuries.
Wow, that's a long history.
Long and deep-rooted.
So the paper talks about Emperor Zera Yacob in the 15th century.
Yes.
It seems like he wanted to bring some structure to all of this.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Around 1450, we have the Matsafa Fuse Manfasosa.
Right, the Book of Spiritual Remedy.
That's the first real step towards a formal system, right?
It is a major step.
Focused mainly on criminal matters.
Yep, 62 articles.
62 articles, not bad.
For a first attempt.
Yeah, but the Book of Spiritual Remedy, that sounds pretty religious.
It was heavily influenced by canon law.
So not entirely secular.
No, still very much tied to the church.
Okay, so that's the Matsafa Fuse Manfasosa.
Yeah.
Then we have the Fethenegist.
The Law of the Kings.
That sounds almost legendary.
It really does.
There's even a story about an Egyptian scholar bringing it to the emperor.
Oh, yeah, Petros Abdesai.
It sounds like something out of a movie.
It's quite a story.
But the paper says it might not be that straightforward.
Well, that's the thing.
So the Fethenegist,
Right.
it pops up in the 15th century,
Under Zera Yacob, maybe?
but scholars aren't sure when it was actually used.
Yeah, some philological studies suggest maybe not till the 16th century.
So later than the Matsafa Fuse Manfasawi.
Potentially, yeah.
Okay, so those are the two big texts.
Yeah.
And they show up during this time of huge change.
Yeah.
But how did they shape what came next?
Well, you have to remember that legal systems are always evolving, the Fethenegist.
Yeah.
It may not have been used right away,
Hmm.
but it really became central to Ethiopian law.
And that leads us to the modern period, right?
Right, starting around 1855.
A time of big changes.
Huge.
The paper mentions Emperor Tewodros II.
Tewodros II.
Seems like he really wanted to modernize,
word.
unify the empire, reform the administration,
He tackled internal conflicts, too.
even abolish the slave trade.
Huge steps.
What a legacy.
He laid the groundwork for everything that came after.
Wow.
Then we get Emperor Melik II.
1889 to 1913.
Yep.
He brings in the cabinet system.
Including a Ministry of Justice.
So things are really becoming more structured.
Much more formal.
But what about those earlier codes?
Yeah.
The Matshafa Fuse Manfasawe, the Fethenest.
Oh, they didn't just disappear.
Okay.
Even with all these changes,
Yeah.
the Fethenegist was still a key reference.
So they were building on what came before.
Exactly, incorporating it into the new structure.
And then in the 20th century, we see a big push to codify things.
Yeah, the 20th century was critical, especially 1924 to 1933.
In 1950 to 1960,
Right. In 1952, the Codification Commission was formed.
the Codification Commission.
And here's where it gets really interesting. It wasn't just Ethiopians on this commission.
Right.
It was a whole bunch of experts from all over the world.
Wow, all working on Ethiopian law.
Yep, you had experts from France, Switzerland, Great Britain,
Wow.
the U.S., Greece, Armenia, India, Russia,
Oh, wow.
Israel, Poland.
I can't imagine those meetings.
I know, right?
All of those different
It's
perspectives.
shaping the future of Ethiopian law.
What's amazing is they didn't just throw out the old traditions.
No, they didn't.
The new codes still referenced the Fethenegist.
That's right.
So it's this balancing act between the global and the local.
Pulling from global expertise, but keeping those Ethiopian roots.
It makes you wonder where Ethiopian law fits in globally.
Yeah.
I mean, we have common law and civil law.
Those are the two big ones.
Common law is all about precedent, past court decisions.
Right.
Civil law focuses on codified statutes passed by legislatures.
Exactly.
So where does Ethiopia fit in?
Well, that's the question, isn't it?
With all its different influences,
customary law, religious influences.
can it really be categorized as one or the other?
It's not easy, that's for sure.
I mean, it takes from both common law and civil law,
It does.
but it's got those unique customary traditions too.
It's really its own thing.
A real hybrid.
Absolutely, like nothing else.
It really challenges how we think about legal systems.
Yeah, it does.
And some scholars even say it should be its own legal family.
A whole new category just for Ethiopia.
That's remarkable.
It is.
What makes it so unique?
Well, it's not just borrowing.
What?
It's weaving together all these different strands.
Mm.
Common law, civil law, those indigenous traditions.
By creating something totally new.
Exactly, a dynamic system that's constantly evolving.
That must have real-world implications.
Oh, it definitely does.
How do legal principles work in that kind of system?
It's not just comparing laws on paper.
Yeah.
It's about understanding how it works on the ground.
So you can't just treat it like any other system.
Exactly. It has its own rules, its own logic.
How does that play out with the Fethanetists?
Ah, the
It's
Fethanetists.
from the 15th century, but it's still relevant today.
It is. It's amazing.
A thread through the whole history of Ethiopian law.
It speaks to how resilient these traditions are.
But how does a system like that handle globalization?
That's what's
The
fascinating.
world's changing so fast.
But Ethiopia manages to balance tradition and modernity.
You have these ancient codes, these customs,
On the one hand,
but then you have global trends, new technology,
yeah, it's like walking a tightrope.
and they're doing it.
They are, and other nations can learn from them.
They show it's possible to adapt without losing your identity.
That's the key.
So it's not about choosing one or the other,
No.
tradition or modernity.
It's about making them work together.
That's a powerful message.
It really is.
Okay, we've talked a lot about history,
We have
but what about everyday life?
the point.
How do these traditions impact people in Ethiopia?
Well, you see it most clearly in family and inheritance law. In many countries, those things are governed by codes.
Right, often with Western influences.
But in Ethiopia, customary law is still central.
So the law respects the different customs of various communities.
Yes, it recognizes that law needs to be relevant to the people.
That makes sense.
And in Ethiopia, that means considering all these different norms and practices.
So it's not just a top-down system.
No, it's pragmatic.
It tries to connect with people's lived experiences.
Exactly. And that makes it more likely to be accepted.
It's like building a bridge between the law and real life.
A good way to put it.
But it can't be easy to balance all of that.
Oh, there are definitely challenges.
So what are some of the pros and cons of incorporating customary law?
Well, one challenge is consistency. Customary law can change from one place to the next,
Right.
and that can lead to conflicting interpretations.
So how do you ensure fairness in a system like that?
That's tough.
I mean, with all those variations,
Some people try to codify customary law,
so make it more formal,
more consistent.
but that could undermine the whole point of customary law.
Right, it's supposed to be fluid and adaptable.
So it's a delicate balance.
It really is.
Clarity versus flexibility.
Exactly.
And you have to make sure it doesn't clash with human rights
Yeah, or with the Ethiopian constitution.
or international law.
Right, it's a constant process of evaluation and adaptation.
So it's not a perfect system,
It's not.
but it has its advantages.
It does.
It makes the law more accessible to people
Especially in rural communities.
where those traditions are really strong.
Exactly. The law becomes more responsive to their needs.
So it's not about forcing people to change.
No, it's about making the law work for them.
That's really important.
It is. It's about fairness and cultural sensitivity.
Finding that balance between consistency and recognizing diversity.
It's not easy, but Ethiopia's doing it. Yeah, it really makes you rethink those categories. This whole journey through Ethiopian law,
Yeah.
it raises bigger questions too. Like,
Right.
is this blending of traditions a model for others?
Could be.
I mean, could this be the future of law?
In a globalized world.
Exactly. As things become more connected,
Yeah.
legal systems will have to adapt.
To all these different perspectives.
Right. And Ethiopia shows it's possible.
To have a system that respects tradition and modernity.
A functional system, a fair system.
It's amazing how they've held on to their unique identity.
It is.
You mentioned earlier that some scholars,
Yeah,
they think Ethiopian law should be its own legal family.
it is.
What would that mean?
It's not just a label.
Right.
It's recognizing how unique this system is.
And how that affects things on the ground.
Exactly. For lawyers, judges, policymakers,
Even international businesses?
anyone interacting with the Ethiopian legal system,
It's a whole different way of thinking.
you can't assume it works like other systems.
We can't have that one-size-fits-all mentality.
No, you have to consider the context.
The culture, the history.
It all shapes how the law works in practice.
That's what makes comparative law so interesting.
It does.
It forces you to look beyond your own assumptions.
To see the diversity out there.
All the different wings of approaching law.
It's amazing.
So we've covered a lot of ground today,
We have.
from ancient Ethiopia to the present.
What a journey.
For our listeners who want to learn more,
Yeah.
where should they start?
Well, definitely check out the paper we've been discussing.
The Genesis of the Contemporary Ethiopian Legal System.
It's a great overview.
A good starting point.
And there are lots of articles and books that go deeper.
Into specific areas of Ethiopian law.
Customary law, family law.
Constitutional law.
It's a whole world to explore.
Maybe some of our listeners will even become experts themselves.
I hope so. There's still so much to discover.
Well, this has been an incredible deep dive,
It has.
exploring this unique legal system,
A system that's hard to categorize.
blending the old and the new.
Reflecting Ethiopia's rich history and culture, and offering valuable lessons for us all.
It's a story about tradition, evolution.
And the importance of understanding law in context.
So, to our listeners, thanks for joining us.
We hope you enjoyed it.
Keep exploring, keep questioning.
And keep those legal minds engaged.
Until next time.
Mm.
Yeah, it seems like they've really found a way to make it work.
They have. It's impressive.
Respecting the past, but also embracing the future. This whole idea of a hybrid system.
Yeah.
It really challenges how we think about legal families.
It does. It makes you wonder, if this could be a model for other countries.
As the world becomes more globalized,
Exactly.
are we going to see more systems like this?
It's possible. As societies change, become more diverse, their legal systems will have to change too.
Right, to keep up.
And the Ethiopian example shows it can be done.
You can blend those different influences
Create a system that works.
without losing what makes you unique.
That's the key.
We were talking before about how some scholars, they think Ethiopian law should be its own legal family. What are the implications of that?
Well, it's more than just a name.
Right.
It's about recognizing the unique features of this system.
How it really
In
works.
practice, yeah.
So not just theory.
No, this has real-world consequences.
The lawyers, judges,
Policymakers, businesses, anyone involved.
it's saying, hey, this system operates on its own terms.
It's a reminder that you can't just apply the same old assumptions.
You have to understand the context.
The specific cultural and historical factors at play.
It's fascinating stuff.
It is.
So we've traced this evolution of Ethiopian law,
From ancient times to today,
and it's been a really insightful journey.
I agree.
Any final thoughts for our listeners?
I just encourage everyone to keep learning,
To explore these different systems,
to see how law interacts with culture and history.
because it's not just about rules on paper.
It's about how those rules are shaped by the world around them.
Well said.
Ethiopian law is a perfect example of that,
It's a unique blend of tradition and modernity,
reflecting the complexities of Ethiopia itself.
and offering valuable lessons for all of us.
Absolutely.
So thank you to our listeners for joining us on this deep dive,
We hope you found it informative
and that it sparked some curiosity.
about the diverse world of legal systems.
Until next time, keep exploring,
Keep those legal minds engaged.
and we'll see you on our next deep dive.